What is up, guys? This is ChronoJoe, and today I'm here with some Uncharted 4 gameplay. And basically I just wanted to show you this quite cool match I had in Bounty Hunt, and perhaps also talk about some of the upcoming Uncharted 4 changes, the match itself, and perhaps co-op survival and things like that. So in this particular game, this is one of my first games on Bounty Hunt, because when I usually play Uncharted 4, I usually stick to the ranked game types. If I'm honest, I've been playing a lot of Titanfall 2 lately, and a lot less Uncharted 4. Not because I don't like Uncharted, it's just because when I have been playing Uncharted, I've been playing ranked, and Titanfall 2 is genuinely a lot of fun, so that's just been occupying some of my time. I'm going to be coming back to Uncharted 4 a lot more for co-op, for more of Season 3 in ranked, I believe it is, and just to experience new maps in general and things like that. But right here, I decided to have a go at Bounty Hunt, which is a mode that I have barely touched before this point, and obviously it's quite similar to Kill Confirmed and things like that from Call of Duty. And I actually really like this mode. I haven't spoken about this because I haven't made many Uncharted videos, but I really like the Bounty Hunt mode. It's one of the few modes that really feels as though it constantly encourages movement, and it encourages that throughout the entire map basically. So Command to a degree also encourages movement, and so does Plunder in a way, but they encourage movement in a very particular way, orientated towards particular points in the map's design. Like for instance, Command is orientated towards the 3 objective points where you want to defend, whereas this particular mode, your movement is encouraged all the time because you're constantly required to go and pick up the confirm, and also it has the assassination mechanic where you're constantly required to go and confirm the kill on the assassination target. It utilizes different portions of the map that you wouldn't normally see, and it has a completely different flow depending on what particular phase you're in. So at one moment you might be attempting to attack the enemy target, another moment you might be not attacking any sort of target but just killing players to earn points. Another moment you might be defending your target. So that gives the match a completely different feel depending on which state it's in, and that means you're using completely different portions of the map, you completely different strategies, etc, etc. I think that makes this game type a lot of fun, and I would say the best game type in Uncharted 4 right now. I'm not certain if it's competitively viable, I'm not sure if I would want to play it in ranked. I don't personally see why not. I don't personally see anything in this particular game type being unfair. I think perhaps the escalating scores is a bit odd, because as you go on, the bounty hunt element of the objective will increase. So at the moment their bounty is worth 60, but at the end of the game it'll be worth 120 or something like that. Which means that if you lose the early game bounties and manage to win the late game bounties, then you can manage to win, even though technically you didn't win any more than they did, you just won at the right time, you won when it was worth more. So that would need to be ironed out, I would say, if they were going to use it in competitive matches in any way. And the same thing is with Command, actually. I mean, not quite the same thing. I actually think it's worse in Command, because in Command, the assassination target, their point value escalates. So often you'll kill their target multiple times when they're worth, say, 40 points, and they'll manage to kill your target once when it's worth 120, and it feels like it's negated a lot of your progress. So you'll be playing the game 3 times better than they are, killing your assassination target 3 times more often, but it doesn't feel that you get 3 times the score for doing that, if that makes sense. And I think that is a bit of an issue if any of these modes were to be played competitively, considering at the moment only Team Deathmatch appears in the ranked playlist. And that's something I'd like to see for Season 4, is a different game type appearing in ranked. Now, I wouldn't like to see Plunder, because Plunder is only 4v4, and for a lot of players they have teams that they play with that are 5 players, and they've established their rotation their like team composition for the seasons 1 to 3, and it'd be always quite awkward to like kick someone out because Naughty Dog has decided that we're going to play a 4-player game type for ranked. That isn't the case with me, as we usually play with I think 4 people, and then we kind of like fill in an extra slot. But if that's required, sometimes we just play with randoms, and then obviously that random goes 0 and like 24 or something like that, and then we lose the game. But yeah, I think that for some teams that'll be a bit awkward, and it feels a little bit unnatural compared to the other modes. I think that's one change that kind of killed Plunder in this game, to be honest, because Plunder has always been quite famous in Uncharted. It's like the most popular mode in my eyes in the previous Uncharted games, or at least one of the most popular modes. And it's really kind of underwhelming in this game. Like, I've never really felt much desire to play it. None of my friends have ever wanted to play it or anything like that. I think the Mysticals and the Psychics do interact with that mode in a slightly bad way, because the game type constantly centralizes on a single objective point at all times. Whereas here you have lots of different dynamics. But in Plunder, it's all focused on one thing all the time, which means all your mysticals, all your brutes, all your sidekicks, all your heavy weapons are going to be focused on one player, and that's the player that's holding the idol. So it's always going to be like very chaotic, and it just tends to feel a bit overwhelming, even with the 4 team size. I actually think maybe 3v3 would be better for that mode, but and then again that's also reducing it down. So it really just doesn't work as well in Uncharted 4 as it did in the previous games. But anyway, less about ranked. The other thing, obviously, we're probably all looking forward to is the cooperative survival. And I've looked into that a little bit and how it's going to be structured with a number of waves, and each wave is going to have a different objective and a boss fight. I'm really looking forward to seeing those bosses, to be honest. Like, I've been playing games like Killing Floor 2 recently, which is another horde-based survival game. And that game only has 2 bosses, which is kind of really disappointing. Like, the game is fun. The game is a lot of fun, actually. If you just want a horde-based survival like game, then Killing Floor 2 I do recommend. But I dislike the fact that it has such a small number of bosses. So it'd be good to see that in Uncharted 4. One thing though, they said there won't be any sort of randomization, so you'll always be playing the same waves on each map, etc. I believe. So you can always anticipate what's coming up next. And at the same time, they say they do that because they want to encourage replayability and like tactical adaptation, because you know what's coming up in each particular wave. And to me that's slightly odd, because I mean, to a degree it will encourage replayability as you figure out strategies and whatnot and so forth. But then after a certain period of time, when you feel that you've figured out those strategies and you know what to do on that wave, you know how to play that map, the lack of any variability will cause that to be quite similar from one to the next. Once you know the best strategy, why would you change it unless you're just messing around? And on something like Killing Floor 2, there's a lot of randomization. There's a lot of randomization to the waves. There's a little bit of randomization to the boss fights, because it can be one of 2. And that still has a lot of tactical diversification, but at the same time, you're not playing the same thing every single time you play that map. And I do like that. I think I like that a little bit more than I like the prospect of playing the same wave format over and over again. Either way, I think it'll bring a breath of fresh air into the game, to be honest. A lot of people are looking forward to cooperative play. I'm looking forward to cooperative play. It'll be fun to play through all the waves and try and beat it on whatever the highest difficulty is, basically, or whatever the hardest thing you can do is. I think that'll be very fun. I might put some videos up on that, maybe some tips videos if it's actually difficult. If it's not difficult, I might not bother, because, I mean, everyone's going to be able to do it anyway and they won't need tips. But if it is, then maybe tips might be valuable and whatnot. So that might be something I put on my channel in the future. But either way, that's coming next week, so I'm looking forward to that. And Naughty Dog is still ironing out the details on the Classic playlist, which should be fun. I did give Classic a go, and I do have some gameplay for Classic somewhere, which I may upload with some more commentary and some more thoughts. But it was from the first beta of the Classic playlist, which isn't quite the same as the second beta, is my understanding. I didn't get a chance to play in the second beta. But for the most part, I enjoyed the Classic mode. I wouldn't say it felt quite the same as Uncharted 4. I feel like the maps and the dynamics lended themselves to more diverse gameplay styles in those games to a degree. I don't resent the way this game plays, but I just think for the Classic kind of game mode, it was kind of fun to be like swinging around, jumping over everywhere and getting those quick kills, being able to like rely on the movement systems and run through enemy teams in quite diverse manners. But now that the maps are more formulaic, I guess. I don't want to say linear, because they're not linear. There are lots of routes, but they're a little bit more formulaic. There's a little bit more of a structure to them that's consistent across one map to the next. And the problem with that is that maps play in a way that's a little bit more repetitive. Like, people know how to play the map. They know the sight lines they need to watch for. They know things like that. And because of that, you don't have the advantage that you had from the movement systems in the previous game. It used to be the case that you could often sneak up on enemies, and you could often just play the flanks, play the elevation, play just the map to your advantage, get behind them and things like that. And I still managed to do that in Uncharted 4, but to a lesser extent. So I think the advantage of the Classic mode and being able to run through an entire new team because you're using the movement system to your advantage is a little diminished, because there are less movement options available to you at any one time. So it's still going to be very team orientated, and I think to some degree the revival system fits better with that team orientation. Like, the maps and whatnot are designed around the new gameplay style they've cultivated in this game.
Nothing quite like a target-rich environment.
And that's why, to a degree, I just think it works a little bit better as it is right now. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, it was quite a bit of fun, and I'm willing to try it out a bit more. I'm willing to give it a go, especially as I'm on my own sometimes. It's a nice game type to play when you're on your own. You don't want to have to rely on teammates so much. You can just run through an enemy team and gun them down on your own. And if you do trade, you don't necessarily lose out on the kill that way. Like you will get the KO. There's no real like disadvantage to trading. It's at least even in that classic game type. Whereas in the regular game types, you get down, and then his teammate downs you and KOs you, and then you don't even get the KO because they revive the guy. So that's an advantage in classic. You can be more of a lone wolf. So if I'm playing on my own, then that's going to favor my situation basically. So I might play it in that particular circumstance. So back to this particular match in question. It's a little bit disappointing really at the end, because this is one of my first bounty hunt games, so you'll have to forgive me a little bit on not perhaps playing the objective as strongly as I could have. But basically, we lose this game by 10 points, and you could definitely formulate an argument which suggests it was my fault that we did that, because although I did reasonably well, like I have the highest score on the team, I think I have the highest kill confirms, I was killing the target as often as possible, defending as where possible. I was missing some of the kill confirms at times, and I actually missed one near the end of this particular gameplay that would have won us the game. So as I say, you could suggest that this was my fault, and from my perspective, to be honest, it pretty much was. It pretty much was my fault that we lost. But at the end of the day, like, I had fun. I got a lot of kills, and I still did pretty well. Like, my team weren't disadvantaged by having me on their team, I'll put it that way. Either way, it was a lot of fun playing Uncharted 4, getting back into it and playing the mode that I hadn't actually played that much of. And as I say, I actually found Bounty Hunt to be a lot of fun. It's something I'll be coming back to in the future. This has been Chrono Joe. Hopefully you do like the video. There's a lot of kills in here, and I didn't see anyone with a 50 kill Bounty Hunt gameplay in any of the matches that I played, and neither did my friends, so I thought this might be quite interesting to upload. So in this particular game, if you're interested in my loadout, I'm just using the HS, I'm using Accuracy, not Fleetfoot, and I'm using the Power 9, I believe it is. I'm just basically relying on mechanical control to get me through the gunfights, basically. And for the most part, the players in the public lobbies, if you are a little bit better than them, you can get away with quite a lot. It doesn't work that way in ranked so much. You have to be much more conservative. But that's what makes unranked quite a lot of fun in Uncharted 4. You can get away with a lot if you're a little bit better than your opponent. And that seems to be the case in this particular game. Either way, Bounty Hunt's a lot of fun. I'm going to be uploading some content from Uncharted 4 Survival soon. Hopefully you'll stick with my channel. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like the video. Obviously, if you don't like the video, dislike. That's also a positive interaction as well. Any interaction is good because it gives me feedback. Like if you dislike it, then I know what content you don't like. So I'm not really going to see that as a negative either. This has been Chrono Joe. Peace out.
Stalin used to execute his generals who failed. After a close loss like this, I'll simply